How you doing, everyone? It's Kevin. I'm back with another video. It's very early in the morning. If you look up, you can see the fog and stuff. I don't do a whole lot in my garage during the day because it gets so hot in there. But this morning we're going to do some maintenance to our bearings on our box trailer camper. As you guys know, we took this thing out and we did 5,220 mile trip on this thing. And what I want to do is I want to snug up the spindle bolt on there and grease the bearings. And I'm going to bring you guys along just to show you how I do it. And this is going to help us in the future to keep our bearings from going bad. So I'd like to do it at least every 5,000 miles. So we got 5,000 miles on there. We're going to get to it. So you guys come along and check it out. Now I got laying out here on the ground all the tools that I'm going to be using. We're going to need a grease gun with some good wheel bearing grease in it. The better your grease, the longer your bearings last. You're going to need a torque wrench. You're going to need a torque wrench to be able to torque these bolts down. And this is an 1.5 inch socket. You're going to need a small hammer, a screwdriver, and a pair of pliers. And a jack. As you can see, I got a jack under there and I got this wheel just off the ground so it moves. And then you're going to need some paper towels because we're going to get greasy here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get that little cap right there, that dust cover cap, off. Now for the dust cover cap, you may need a small screwdriver. I really don't recommend anybody beating on their screwdrivers. But we got to get this off and we need something thin, and that's all I have right on hand. So we're just going to tap this a little bit, spin the wheel, and we're going to tap it a little bit. Just to where we can get the screwdriver down in behind that cap. There's a lip right here. And then we're just going to twist. We're going to spin it a little bit, twist, spin it a little bit, twist. And eventually this cap should just come right off. Okay, there's our cap. This is our dust cover cap. It actually has a rubber plug in the back side of it here. You could take out to grease it, but we're not going to be greasing right now. We're going to be snugging this up. So there's where you're going to need your needle nose pliers. This one here has a little pin in it. We're going to straighten this pin out. And we're going to pull it out there. Okay, we got our pin out. Lay it inside of your little cap. That way you know where it's at, you don't lose it. Now, as you can see, this one here is loose enough you can spin with your fingers. Well, you do want to be able to spin it with your fingers, but you don't want to have the play. And you could hear I got some play in there. Hopefully we can take this out. So what we're going to do is we got our torque wrench set on 50 pounds. And what we're going to do is we're going to torque this down to 50 pounds. Okay, you hear that snap? That was 50 pounds. Listen for it. Okay, we're at 50 pounds. So now what we want to do is we want to back it off. We want to back that nut off. We're just going to break it back off. Okay. We should be able to spin this with our fingers now. What we want to do is we want to tighten that up as tight as we can get it with our fingers. And then we're just going to put our pin right back down in there. That's all we have to do to tighten this up. Now, we have no noise in there. No noise. And sometimes it's a little bit hard when you torque these back down to get this pin back in. So I think that's why a lot of times people will actually have them off a little bit. They'll be a little bit, maybe a little bit too loose or a little bit too tight, because it's hard to get the pin back in. So we're going to get this pin started down in here. That's the tricky part. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull that back off of there. We're going to find out where. We're going to wipe that off a little bit. This pin doesn't go straight down through the center on this one because of the grease fitting in there. It's off to the side a little bit. So I'm going to get some of the grease off this thing. Okay. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to retorque this again. We're going to retorque this again, and then we're going to loosen it up and do it over again. Now that I know where my key is here. Okay, there's our 50 pounds. I'll break it back all loose to where we could turn it with our hands. Okay, we should be able to turn it with our fingers here. We're going to snug it up as tight as we possibly can. Oops. With our fingers. Now we're going to work on getting this guy down through here. It should go down through there. Okay, this is where I'm going to go just a little bit tighter. Well, I need just a little bit on there. Just a tiny bit. That should give it to us there. Okay, now we got it in there. So we're just a little bit tighter, but we want to make sure our wheel is not, we still want it to spin. If that thing's too tight, it's not going to spin. So it'll be real tight. You'll know it's tight. So now that we got that done, we have to bend these little clips. Let me make sure you guys could see here. Now we have our little pin right here, and we want to bend these guys back around. Just like so. Now eventually, after bending them so many times, you'll probably have to replace them. But what we don't want is this little pin to get in the way of us greasing this fitting right here, or in the way of our dust cover that has to go over the outside of that. So here is the dust cover. Now we'll go ahead and push it on there. And I'm just going to use the wooden part of my hammer here and just give it some taps and spin it. Okay, it's back on. Then we're going to take a screwdriver, put it in the edge of this little rubber boot, and we're going to pull that little rubber boot right out of there. And that's where we're going to grease it from. So we'll get our grease gun ready and get the grease in this guy. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down some paper towels here, because we want that grease to come out of there. and we don't want to get it all over the place. I'll show you what I did here. I just took a couple paper towels, stuck them in that hole, and laid a couple on the ground so it would catch that grease. Didn't want that grease to go on the ground. So now we're going to start pumping our grease in there. You got to make sure you have good wheel bearing grease and plenty of it. And you're going to keep pumping until we get some clean grease coming out of this thing. Now, I wouldn't recommend using a air grease gun on this, because there is some rubber seals on the back of that hub, and you don't want to blow them seals out of there. So I would just use a regular hand grease gun. And our grease is starting to come now. It's starting to come. It's starting to reach the hole there. That grease is black there. That's pretty dark grease. So, and I'll just do this till it starts to get clean grease. Yeah, you start seeing it turn a little different color. You'll know you're okay in there. Alright, I think we're okay there. We got more than enough grease out of that thing. Then we're just going to clean this all up. And that's about it. Now that thing is greased up there pretty good. I don't think we'll have any problem going on another 5,000 mile trip. And all we got to do is throw our cap. It's got a little lip on this cap. There's a little ridge right there. You want to make sure that goes up into that so you don't lose your little cover on here. Okay. We'll get us some more rags and wipe that off, and then we'll have that pretty much done. Alright, now that looks pretty good. So I'd say this wheel is definitely good for another trip. Alright, that's one side done. All I got to do is get over there and get the other side done. It's pretty simple. Basically, tighten it, torque it down, 50 pounds, break it loose, tighten it with your finger, get your pin back in there. But as you've seen, I had a hard time lining up the pin. I just gave it a little bit of a snug, not very much, and the pin fit perfect. If I'd have went a little bit loose, I really didn't want my bearings to be loose, but you don't want them to be too tight either. Sometimes too tight can be worse than too loose. So do your best to get a happy medium in there, and you'll be just fine for your next trip. I'd like to tell everybody thanks for watching my video. Don't forget to subscribe, leave me thumbs up, thumbs down, a comment if you want. Click that little bell down there from alerts when I post another video. Thanks for watching.